Welcome. I'm going to be talking today about the fact that a couple weeks ago, back in October, I paid off the entirety of my private student loans. If you are lucky enough to not have to know what the different types of loans are when it comes to student loans, federal loans come from the government and have great interest rates. They're usually subsidized so they don't collect interest while you're still in school. Private loans are just any other loan from a bank, and they have really high interest rates and collect interest always, forever. So it's a huge deal because those are the bad ones for me that I paid them off in their entirety. And since then, I've been expecting my life to change drastically, but it hasn't. Um, that aside, it's not really what I'm here to talk about. I was just thinking a lot about higher education and financial investment because I got an art degree. There's a lot of questions there for artists whether or not it's worth it to go to school, especially with the cost benefit situation. But I saw this video a little while back of this artist who had saved up a huge chunk to pay off her loans and made a video and was saying she did it entirely by selling her art. And I thought that was super cool and inspiring. But I did not do that. I have not sold nearly enough art. I have paid these loans off completely by my day jobs, of which I have worked up to 4 at a time. Let me give a breakdown. It's been about 2.5 years since I graduated. When I finished school, I immediately took a vacation, and at the end of all that, basically had $2,000 to my name. For some of you, maybe that's a lot. For some of you, maybe you're like, oh my gosh. Basically, to break it down, that's 2.5 years. And I don't want to do the exact math, but it came out to $30,000 in 30 months. Okay, so just putting that out there for my private loans, 30K in 30 months. And I've thought a lot about whether or not this was worth it, especially considering that my jobs were not selling paintings, which is what I went to school for. But before I get into my conclusive thoughts, I wanted to share this moment because it's a huge moment for me, but also know that you didn't get to see the part, or I should say, didn't have to see the part during months 1 through 7 of those 30 months where I was crying almost every day, and you just get to enjoy the part where it's month 31 and I've already gotten my reimbursement for overpaying and I'm financially back on track and I've already gotten a couple paychecks where I didn't owe anything to my loans and I get to keep all of it. But I just want to celebrate for a second. First,
LA was terrible. A lot
Sure.
of traffic.
All right.
wait. Okay. Ah!
Do it. There we go. Mazel tov.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. The good stuff. The fancy. Like I said, my life hasn't really felt much different since paying this off, which is probably a good thing considering how much of a chunk of money that was for me to lose. But I just want to thank everybody that I feel has contributed a lot to this journey, starting with my professors, who I think probably have the biggest contribution to what my final closing thoughts on whether or not education is worth it. And I think a lot about the fact that I owe very much about who I am and what I do and how I live my life to your passion and your commitment to teaching what you love and going out of your way to connect with me specifically. I'm thankful for every last one of you. I would not be where I am today without you. That's definitely for sure. And I wouldn't have the attitude I do about school without you. I know how how little you make for how important your job is. So I hope that my thank you and my appreciation makes up a little bit for the fact that very little of that $30,000 actually went to you. I want to thank my bosses for the jobs I've been working over the last few years. I think I've had some of the best opportunities, and it makes going to work 7 days a week not feel really depressing. I'm really grateful for everybody that I've been working for because I know that makes such a huge difference. And I have to say, between school and work, in terms of what I'm grateful for, everyone that's been like a peer alongside me in that journey has also made those things feel really motivating on an emotional level. That's how you've contributed to my financial well being. Next, I need to thank the systems in place that helped me, including SNAP, which I was receiving for 1 or 2 years towards the end of my college experience when I was working 25 hours a week, going to school 20 hours a week, and paying my own rent. The difference in my life once I had food stamps was like everything I did, I was in pain, but I did it anyway. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, my belly's full and I feel warm and like healthy. And I think about that frequently. It like makes me emotional because when you're working really hard, it can be so hard to take care of yourself and remember to eat. And if I have enough money to go out and buy myself some food, I'm like, I am going to feed myself right now because I really don't want to take that for granted. And I know that a lot of people have been worried lately about where their food's going to come from, especially people on SNAP specifically. And I wanted to give it a shout out because it was very, very important to me and meant that I saved money that could be spent on my education and made me that much closer to being able to pay off that $30,000. And I also have to thank, this is kind of an obscure roundabout thank you because in terms of my federal loans, I haven't really touched them, but right out of college, I got onto the SAVE plan, which was Joe Biden's plan. Joining that meant that I had an automatic year to live before they could assess what my income would be for an income-based repayment plan. That year helped me pay down the $30,000 in private loans. And then as soon as that was up, it was being contested legally. So I kind of have to thank whatever lawmakers decided that it wasn't constitutional because that meant that my loans went into forbearance for like another year, maybe. Maybe some of you hate to hear this, but I had free money from the government for a very long time because of the SAVE plan and because of the SAVE plan being destroyed. And I am grateful either way. It got me closer to paying this off. So, thank you. This is probably the only thank you I'll ever give to random politicians. I don't know. And I guess what also kind of goes into this is COVID slash my university freezing tuition. That doesn't really feel like something I feel especially grateful for, even though I know it contributed overall to making it easier for me to pay things off. But I saved the biggest one for last, and I'm going to try not to get emotional about this one, but the biggest number one thank you that I have to give out is to my parents. We live here in Southern California where rent is extremely expensive, and they have allowed me to live with them for free, which is a huge privilege that not many people get. And without that, every single cent that I spent on my loans would have been spent on rent, and I probably would have more debt than I started with 2.5 years ago. So they may not have been able to throw down a crazy amount of money just for my tuition, but the resources that they've given me meant that I am that much closer to being completely financially independent. And I can't even put into words all of the things that they've contributed to my life, my well-being, my work ethic, and how they raised me. And, when it comes to the question of how much of my ability to pay this off was hard work, I still feel like I owe all of that to them. They're definitely the reason that I worked hard in high school and got a scholarship. They were there every semester helping me move between dorms and, getting me flights home for Christmas so I wouldn't be lonely. So the biggest thank you in the world goes to my parents, without whom I would not even be anywhere close to being able to make this video in this moment in any capacity. I wouldn't even have this phone to record this on. I wouldn't exist. So, huge thank you to mom and dad. I don't want to say that I didn't contribute somewhat to this being paid off, because I did work a lot. I worked a lot of jobs. I sacrificed holidays to be at my restaurant job on Christmas and things like that. So, yeah, it wasn't without my contributions, but I still feel that there was way more at play that was helping me than meets the eye. It's all there under the surface, meaning that every little thing made me that much closer to being able to pay it off, and all I did, I feel, was show up. But I think that just brings me to my conclusion, which is I don't think in a lot of ways that college is a great financial investment in terms of how much I've had to work, how far I still have to go, and how directly, I suppose, my degree plays into my earning. But I also don't think I would have any reason to do any of this without not only specific like education on politics and society and history, but also the survival skills of learning how to live in the world when you go away to college. I don't think I would have a reason to move across the country and have a new experience. I don't think I would have motivation to go work a job that is just a job. I don't think that I would understand why certain things are so important, including things like the SAVE plan and SNAP. I don't think I would know what those things are, and everybody has their different experience. There's so many different ways to get higher education. Ultimately, I just can't comprehend where I would be and who I would be without it. And to me, in my mind, where I was before I went, if I was still there, that to me doesn't feel like a life worth living at all. But no, I don't think it's a good financial investment. And that's why I think my biggest reason for wanting to make this is like fix that. We need to fix that. And you don't know what you don't know. But had I been able to go to school without this huge burden, would I have taken bigger risks? Would I have done extra coursework instead of working as a barista? And I'm not saying I didn't learn lessons that way too, but the necessity of knowing the things that you're going to learn in school, put everything else to the side. We should fix the system so people can see for themselves and then make the decision of whether or not it was worth it, rather than having to grapple with $30,000 when you're 21. And I wasn't even making $30,000 a year. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts on this, and anyone who has thoughts on higher education, talk to me because I love talking about it. I think I already hit my conclusions. Fix the system!